over the weekend on Friday, we have a show that I've been on a couple of times, which is Any Questions on the BBC. A reasonably decent programme, normally filled with lots of lefties in the audience. And Lucy Powell, MP for Manchester Central, also the leader of the House of Commons, was on it with Tim Montgomery, who's a kind of very liberally, kindish, generally nice guy from the old Conservatives, who's become a Reform supporter on there. And he manages to start talking about a show that was on Channel 4, Groomed, and he asks the question about how we've not got the kind of full inquiries. Wasn't this a terrible show? Doesn't it highlight lots of issues? And when you get on here, I think this is quite clear from here. It should come up. I don't know if it plays.
Everybody saw the documentary on Channel 4 about rape gangs over
No,
this.
we want to blow that little trumpet now, do we? Yeah, okay.
There was a real issue.
Let's get that dog whistle out, shall we?
Disgusting. Right.
Just to be clear, she's quite a senior leader of the House.
She's leader of the House.
Quite a senior person. She's not a backbencher.
She's not a backbencher. She's very senior, and she's been selected from virtually a very young age to become a senior member of the Labour Party, and I'll pick up on that. So that's what she actually says. Let that dog whistle out when the topic of rape gangs is brought up. And for me, as a Mancunian who lived literally a quarter of a mile from her, when I was 7, she was born. We would probably have played in the same park. Lots of other different things about it. I find that disgusting, utterly horrendous to talk about these two girls and many others who were groomed, brutalized, raped, all sorts of vile things that we've seen in the trials, about them, how their lives have utterly been destroyed, minimized, and literally pushed into the dustbin by someone like Lucy Powell, who's had a pretty good life of her own, who never had to have that same level of suffering or pain, and she comes around and says it's a dog whistle for anybody to be able to discuss it.
Yeah, just to mention it.
Just to mention it.
It's mere
just
mention.
Say that
it's
this
a little dog whistle.
Yeah, hang on. This is a proper documentary, not like Adolescence, which was a TV show. This should be shown in every school across the country to show what is out there for young girls to be aware of the type of men that are willing to try and do severe harm, not the Adolescence, which is a TV show made up by people who want to abuse white young boys. This is a real life story, and that should be in schools, and that's my personal view on it. And I get quite passionate about it because, I'm sick to death of the ignorance of the grooming gangs, and I'm glad that I see Neil O'Brien, who's come out and turned around, because the immediate response to it was very clear, as we've done in here. The immediate response is exactly what it is. It is abusive to ignore this. Girls kept in cages, made to act like dogs, given heroin, raped, injected by abusers, aborted fetuses. Dog whistles when you raise that as an issue? What human being? What human being even thinks like that to make that sentence? What is the character of that individual to even think that that could come out of her mouth in response of this?
It's morally reprehensible. It's amoral.
Yeah. Matthew Talbot, nice guy actually, very left. I've spoken many times with him, and he's come on and he says he's normally lenient, but he said it smacks of snobbery and someone who doesn't get it. Well, I think there is an element of snobbery in our elites anyway. I think certainly snobbery in the Labour Party at the top of the tree when they're all the Oxbridge types that have made it along the way. But for having someone of the left come out and say this, so we've had someone of the right, someone of the left, and I'll give you another example here. Andrew Neil. I think this is a really pertinent way he said it. Andrew Neil often gets it. He was pretty balanced. He is recognised now being of the right now that he's independent. But he was very clearly independent when a journalist. Look, we get it. No need to explain. Vulnerable white working class girls don't matter. And anybody who raises their enslavement and horrific abuse by Asian rape gangs is a dog-whistling racist. Lucy Powell...
Of course, he's being sarcastic, of course.
Yeah, he is. Right. Lucy Powell...
Don't take that at face value.
She should walk.
Yeah.
She should be so ashamed at what she said that she should walk. So she tried to double down on it, and Connor Tomlinson got this, and she said to turn around and defend the dismissing of this scandal as a dog whistle, but she deleted her tweets. Then, surprise, surprise, she comes out and says she wants her apology. Well, I want everyone to look at this as an apology. Look at the way it was drafted. In the heat of the discussion, I would like to clarify that regard the issues of child exploitation and grooming with the utmost seriousness. Child exploitation and grooming, not child exploitation and grooming by Asians as shown in the film or the documentary Groomed. The general child exploitation and grooming for everybody.
Also, I just don't care. If you're a decent person, you don't say things like that, even during the heat of a discussion.
Yeah,
just don't do it.
It's a classic example of a non-apology.
That's right.
It's sort of like, I'm sorry you noticed.
I was challenging the political point scoring, not the issue itself. Well, I don't think from what we've just heard in the question raised by I've forgotten his name all of a sudden, just the reform chap, Monty. So by Monty, that it was a heated discussion. It didn't sound heated. She made it heated by the way that she responded. Right. He was being pretty decent. Interesting to see the first response there on Twitter. Yeah. Handsome chap. Yeah, I don't know who that is. That's pretty... Well, shall I play that? It's just a tiny little gif of Achilles, because famously, anyone who doesn't know, Achilles... refused to accept any sort of apology. No, I'm not. That's pretty good. I didn't choose that because you were in there, by the way, but that was actually pretty cool. It's like, no, my anger isn't sated, actually. Yeah. No, it's not good enough, actually. And it's not good enough. Yeah. So she tries to apologise. Then Rupert Lowe comes out, and as many of us, why is Lucy Powell still in the cabinet?
Because I want to say one thing. I constantly hear leftists talk about humanism and humane governance and humane societies. The people I've met who are more disgusted of other human beings on an interpersonal level were almost invariably leftists. Mm-hmm. They hate actual flesh and blood human being. They love the idea of human beings. Yeah. They love the idea of rhetoric and propaganda, and during the Me Too movement they did use that rhetoric because they wanted to co-opt the movement and say only leftists care about women who have been abused. But now they seem to be thinking that we live in a different world, and they've calculated they don't think they're gonna win any votes this way, so they literally show all their vile. That's right. It is a classic thing for leftists to be quite callous when it comes to human life. Two quick examples. One, famously Stalin said, something like, I'm paraphrasing, but like, one death is a tragedy, but a million is just a statistic. Or when Mao was told during the Great Leap Forward that millions of people are starving to death, he said, well, we only lost one finger, we've still got 9 left. Yes. Whoa, madness. It's the same... It is that ideology. It's that thought, that lack of care, the indecency of these as human beings. It is indecent. And I think she's showing herself as being utterly indecent. And I think what happens is Rupert Lowe picks up a very different point. Obviously, every time we saw anything that was done by the Conservatives, the Labour Party were out saying, resign, resign, resign. Boris should sack them. Rishi should sack them. So the same question applies to them when you've got something as serious as this. But of course not. Out they sent Wes Streeting, and I've got to admit, I do want to play this because I know I'm playing too much, but I just try and see, 1 or 2 points about it.
Also move on to your colleague Lucy Powell. Doesn't this sum up the problem for Labour? And that's the fact that Lucy Powell, a government minister, the leader of the Commons, believes that if somebody points out the grooming gang scandal in which thousands of teenage girls were raped and tortured, somebody in Labour points a finger and says, you're a bigot and a racist.
I don't think that's what Lucy thinks and feels.
That's exactly what happened. It's a dog whistle issue.
She's rightly apologised for what she said on Radio 4 on Friday night, and said, she's made a genuine mistake. She's genuinely sorry.
What did she get? What did she make a mistake about?
Sorry, I'm confused. Before where people.
What mistake did she make?
I've been in those debate programmes. She shouldn't have said what she said to Tim Montgomery. That wasn't the right response to fair and reasonable points he was making. Well, because she's human and we make mistakes, and I've been in those debates.
There we go. That she can be so callous and nasty and awful and abusive is because she's human and made a mistake. Isn't that the same sort of exact human political mistake that leads to people falling on their own sword in politics and resigning?
But notice how victims are denied humanity in this case. Aren't they human too?
They are very human, but not human enough.
There's a classic thing. There's a difference between... We all know this because we speak for a living, essentially.
Yeah.
There's a classic difference between misspeaking, and that definitely happens.
Yes.
A number of times I've meant to say Queen Elizabeth and I've said Queen Victoria, or the other way around.
Yeah.
That sort of thing where you literally say the wrong thing. There's that.
Yes.
Okay. Or there's getting something factually wrong. Okay, we all do it.
Yep.
And then there's having a whole world view, which you allow out there, and that's not by accident.
No, and sometimes...
It's like, do you believe that? Do you think that or not? It's not like you accidentally said the wrong word and you meant a different word. It's not that.
That's like an American Psycho moment where he's sat with his friends, and at some point he says something really crazy, and everyone goes,
Yeah.
It's not a joke, mate.
Yeah.
And I think what you see with politicians looking at this is that they're absolutely very clear that sometimes their outward look slips to who they really are. And what this is showing is who she really is.
Her true colours.
Her true colours are out.
Shone
but of course, no surprise there. We've got in comes number 10. We back her. She's made a decent non-apology and made it so bland that it doesn't really matter to the people that have been abused. And we've got others now who start to attack her. We turn around and say, look, this is perfectly acceptable language, but no, it's not. We show what it really is now. It's part of denialism, and I like this, Nick Dixon. This is part of Labour's denialism and the left denialism when it comes down to the fact there are far worse things than being called racist, such as the rape and torture of children. Absolutely true.
Yeah, Nick Dixon, friend of the show, not mincing his words there.
No,
good on him.
Not at all, and nor should any of us mince our words with this, because this is bringing the issue up. And yet, look at what she did. Lucy Powell once said herself, horrific details of systematic abuse in Oxford resonates with cases. Issues need wider inquiry.
Yeah, but that was 12 years ago.
Yeah, 12 years ago when she wasn't really in power in the influence that she has. But she was saying it to show the kind of person she is. I'll lie then and I'll lie now. But here is something I think is what some of the reasons I come down and tried to go cross on here. What are the reasons why they don't do it? First of all, sorry, I'm not yet learning your system. Is actually she doubled down. First of all, why are they doing it? And I say first, there's denialism. So Labour has that denialism in their core. They want to deny the issue and just hide it because they're political reasons that we need to have people vote for us. The second is the denialism comes because you've seen them argue that we've got to have these cases protected. But the third area I come is asymmetric multiculturalism that we've got here. The sneering dismissal, as Mary Harrington puts out, clearly points to a paper about the way they look at the scandal of Pakistani majority rape gangs. And for the grievance which Powell is contemptuously dismissed as a dog whistle actually about, it's what Eric Kaufman, asymmetric multiculturalism, in which an ethnic majority is held to a different standard to that of the minorities. That answers it all for Labour, to be honest, for them.
That's what woke is.
Yes.
Because multiculturalism says we have many groups practicing their culture. Asymmetric means that the state is going to intervene and treat one group as, or is going to be a higher group, let's say, because there needs to be an addressing of the historical injustices. And in fact, this means there's a two-tier society being established.
Yeah, and they will ignore the fact here that there were racially aggravated crimes, and we haven't seen any of that. And of course, you come to that and you say this distinguishment. Look at her here. She's here at an iftar. saying community of chance, a chance for us all to come together. I don't see it in the same way doing this as community events. And as I said, we made jokes about, going up to Christians or Catholics or anything like that. It's because they are now so towards their own ideological groups of voters that human being, their characters are coming out by ignoring the white working class. Rape, we'll ignore it, but I'll go to a community iftar.
I mean, it's treasonous. It's sort of, the word treason isn't even strong enough, I don't think. I mean, I think that if we do end up in a war like the Balkans, like Yugoslavia had in the 90s, if that ends up happening here, decades and centuries after that, when historians look back at the origins of why that happened, they'll look back at people like her. They'll look back at something like the Runnymede Trust. And they'll say, these were the seeds. This is what allowed it, a situation like that to even be possible.
These are the people that held their snobbery on their own social differences and genuine inhuman beliefs that people can be raped and bullied for diversity reasons. This is what caused it.
Here's a clip of Angela Rayner pandering to Muslims, or whatever.
It's just not only that, and there is a fourth reason why she is being protected, and that is because if you look at her Wikipedia, which unfortunately last night was quite good fun. I had it on a phone and I tried to transfer it. Someone actually completely changed her name to Lucy Powell Mohammed Jadadan and completely abused and changed it all, supporting her. She's born in 1974. She's leader of the House of Commons, Lord President of the Council, and also a Privy Councillor. This coming across onto that. It's quite shocking how she's managed to achieve so much.
So a very important pillar of the political establishment. There's no two ways about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? But the Labour political establishment. And I've got to hear it comes in here. Lucy was born in Moss Side. She attended Beaver Road Primary School and goes on then to say she went to Palswood School, which was up the road from me, Severian College, which wasn't a bad college. And she began her career as a parliamentary assistant for Beverly Hughes when she was 21. Sorry, that would have made her 23. But she was actually...
Straight out of uni, more or less.
Straight out of university, she went into Millbank Tower to work in the 1997 election.
So an apparatchik her whole life.
Yes, straight from there, she went to work for Beverly Hughes, who was a Labour MP, who also, oddly enough, became a Privy Councillor too, in terms of that. And this, I know Labour at Beverly Hughes, and she is a particularly sharp and aggressive, nasty person when I was there. To make sure she was a good EU person, she joined Patton, Kinnock, Clegg and Danny Alexander. And she ended up running at a very early age, now 29, running the BIE for the referendum in 2005. And then in 2010, she ran Ed Miliband's successful campaign for the Labour Party leadership. All in a very, very early age. So how did she manage to get to that? It comes down that she did have one loss. She was trying to be put into a seat in Manchester Withington, which is my seat where I grew up. That would have been the seat I would have stood for. But she was defeated in 10, so she was handed the 2012 elected seat in Manchester Central. Now, if we come along here, Beverly Hughes, that we've just talked about, also a member of that Manchester clan. In Manchester, we call it like the Chicago of Labour. It's the mafia of the North. You cannot get anything done unless you're a member of the Labour Party or a member of one of the unions working within them. And literally that's from housing to business contracts. It is enshrined up there. Simon Danzuk had this pretty interesting about Lucy Powell was parachuted into Tony Lloyd's Manchester seat when he became Greater Manchester Police Commissioner. I went up and stood against Tony. A nice guy in many ways, but exactly that type of Labour person from the North as a GM Commissioner. I didn't achieve anything because Manchester's going to return anything. If you put a dog with a rosette on in Manchester, it will be and it's Labour, they'll put that in. They don't care. It will always be Labour, never will be anything else. And everybody else along with that, every job connected with that. And I've got to hear... Oh, I don't know why that's come up. she comes down here, an article I found quite interesting about her when she got the job in Manchester Central. She talks here about it's her really dream job. She was tipped for roles in there, and she goes on to talk about her family background in this particular article. One of the key things I found in there is that she said, I work for Beverly Hills, I work for all these people, but my dad was a kind of top labor trade unionist, and my mum was a headmistress at one of the schools that she went to on there. So that's just setting out where she was in terms of that. And I think I'm coming down to the next part about it. She, again here, emphasizes the fact she's from Moss Side. She went to Savarian school. She got to Oxford, but I didn't like Oxford for a year, so I carried on and went to university for 2 years. And my dad, again, was always a Labour person, always involved in the heart of Labour in Manchester. And my aunts and uncles were also headmistresses. So
dyed-in-the-wool pinko.
Yeah, dyed-in-the-wool pinko, living in a nice area, but claiming to be from Moss Side. Now, the reason I'm going to say this here is I'm going to put this map on here. Fog Lane Park there, that is literally where I lived, just above there. This area here is a massive council estate, and I lived there. This is where she lived. On the other side, this little triangle here was regarded as where all the people who were wealthy, the doctors, the business people, the headmistresses, all the houses that we would walk past with mouths dropped on, only wish we could live in, that sort of thing. That is nowhere near in Moss Side. Her school, Beaver School, was literally here, down here in the middle of it. Over here, St. Bernard's Orsi was my school. Down here, around this area, is where she went to her grammar school, Parswood School. That was always getting the capture area of the middle class, of Cheadle and some of the nice areas. So she's lived in a comfortable life, a comfortable area, with all the kind of trappings of a kind of nice middle class area. Nothing wrong with that, I would say, on principle. Her dad was a well-endowed and well-connected Labour person. She has teachers as parents, so she got to Oxford. She's on the route. She is part of the de facto royal family of the Northwest's Labour movement, and that is why she's being protected. And she's nowhere near being able to claim herself as being born in Moss Side. No one's born in Moss Side. You were born in the hospital, in Withington Hospital, which isn't there, and she didn't grow up in that area either. So she comes along, that great tranche of Labour MPs as, I was a solicitor. Actually, no, I wasn't. Oh, I worked in the Bank of England as an economist. Actually, no, I didn't. I lived in Moss Side. Actually, no, I didn't. But they put these down to bolster their CVs, to say, I'm down with the man and woman of the people. I'm down with the working class. And there's nothing working class about her. But what she doesn't have is any class whatsoever, with a statement that she's made that it's dog whistling about grooming gangs.
What she's got seems to be a streak of contempt for those victims, if anything.
Totally, absolutely, totally.
Reprehensible.
Reprehensible. And so that's my little piece. I'm a little bit short on it, obviously, on there. But I think really, when you're looking at this whole picture, it's damaging to the Labour Party in a huge way. Because actually what I didn't show on the other side of that graph is where Angela Rayner was. So it's literally, I was in the middle of Angela Rayner and her. And I was 7 when she was born. So it's not too different in an age group. It's not too different in knowing the area of what Manchester was like. In lots of places, it was really deeply impoverished. It was, a cold time. We went through the miners' strikes. We went through lights being switched out. And where Angela Rayner lived, she did live in a really horrid part of Stockport. Not a nice place to grow up with, a plot of impoverishment there. So she would have really known it. So to be able to turn around and say that Angela, Lucy Powell lived in the same way that others did at that time. I find that, for me, pretty annoying, and it angers me a lot to have those claims. She's had huge amounts of benefits given to her, advantages that many people would not have the opportunity of. How many people think they would have been able to simply walk into Labour Party's head office in 97 under Blair, Mandelson and all the rest and get a job in there.
When you're 23?
When you're 23.
Oh,
not without the right connections.
Yeah.
Not without the right connections. So she was selected.
Actual privilege.
She's been privileged. She is a privileged person, and she's abusing people who have no privilege. So I think I can rant on about her and her ilk, but what it is really, really showing to me is the Labour Party coming out of actually who they are at the top end. The Fabianists, those people who might be part of the cooperative movement, who shouldn't be there. And that's the type of individual we really need to challenge.
Well, in Road to Wigan Pier, George Orwell very eloquently talks about that sort of middle-class, academic, socialist type.
Yeah.
And they're horrid. They are horrid people.
If you would like to watch the full uncut version that is also uncensored, head on over to lotuseaters.com to find out more.